hello, my sweet friend. I am Cristina Revalo, cake decorator, coach, and teacher, and I am here to empower my fellow cake artists to be creative and to work together as a tight cake community by providing information and opportunities for all, regardless of their level of expertise and knowledge. If you are a cake artist, cake decorator, baker, or cake enthusiast and want to be coached for success, this podcast is for you. Let me help you set achievable goals, understand that managing your time, having a positive mindset, understanding your customer, selling, using social media for your cake business, and knowing how to teach your craft are all as important as flour, sugar, and eggs. Let me share with you what has worked for me, all from a very personal and down-to-earth perspective. I want for you to put your name out there, not to be stressed with time and working hours, and to participate in cake collaborations and competitions, so one day you will be that cake artist featured in a cake magazine or teaching at international events, just like me. Welcome to the Art Cake Coach podcast. Well, hello, my sweet friends. Welcome to another episode of the Art Cake Coach podcast. Cristina here. Happy Tuesday. Welcome and thank you for listening to me today. I'm so happy to have you all back. Well, guess what? Today's episode is going to be quite different from what I'm used to. Why? Because, and you may not know this if you just met me through the podcast, I'm not only a cake decorator, but I'm a gelatin artist as well. What it means to be a gelatin artist. Can we invent any other different terms about edible things? Is like, yes. Well, there's such a thing as edible. Of course, gelatin is edible. That's not what I meant. There is a thing called gelatin art or jelly art. Jelly art, if you have seen it, are those gelatines that seem to have real flowers inside of them. And it's usually made on clear gelatin, and the flowers are made with some sort of very fancy tools that have like syringe that have the shapes of petals, and you create flowers through that. And where I come from, and I'm going to tell you the story, in Venezuela, there is no birthday party without a gelatin. We have every time, all the time. When we blow the candles and we're going to serve cake to our guest, we serve in the same plate cake, gelatin, and milk pudding. Don't ask me why, but it's a thing. If any of those three are missing, it's like the birthday plate is not completed. It's like, what happened? I grew up with gelatin in birthday parties. And not only we had gelatins, but gelatins were decorated in the style of the party. So let's say I had a princess party. So of course we were going to have a princess themed gelatin. And there were many techniques to decorate gelatins. Before I left Venezuela to come to Portugal, that's one of the things that I wanted to learn how to make. Because I wanted to keep doing that for my kid's birthday party for Mariana. She was my only daughter at the time. And I wanted to celebrate her birthday parties here in Portugal and have, the Venezuelan tradition. So I took a course on decorated gelatin. By the time these flower things were not a big deal, we're just starting out. We're talking 2003, 4, so just 2004 maybe. They were starting to come around. I think it comes from a Japanese dessert or is an oriental technique, definitely. And it blew out in Latin America. And of course, then it moved to North America and finally here to Europe. And this technique, the flower technique that I mentioned, because I learned how to decorate like painting on gelatines, creating sort of like a gelatin cake. And if you go into my oldest website, the Art Cake Experience, www.theartcakeexperience.com. That is my site related to everything cakes and everything edible that doesn't have anything to do with the coaching and the podcast. if you go to that website, you can find pictures of all the sort of gelatins that I made. So I came to Portugal. I learned how to do this decorated gelatins, not the flowers, the decorated gelatins. But as I started seeing this trend in the market of the flowers, I said, well, I need to figure out how to do this. Of course, all the videos will show me how to make these gelatins with very specific tools. By the time, the tools were very expensive. They were not sold here in Europe, so I had to either order them from the States or order them from Asia, which we're talking about 2011, 2012. So it wasn't that easier to bring. I mean, of course you could, but not in small quantities, to bring things from outside of the European Union, especially if it had to do with tools like syringe, because people didn't know what they were from and it could be a hazard, whatever. So, being me and being resourceful, I said, well, you know what? I'm either going to make my own tools or I'm going to learn how to make these gelatins without the tools. And that's what I did. I created a series of flowers inside clear gelatin that were not done with any special tools. The only tool that I used was a syringe from the pharmacy store and some spoons and some knives that I had at home. I think I had a small palette knife for oil painting. And that was it. That's it. And cutters. That's all I used. And I created these flowers. I start practicing the flowers, they were really nice. And you can take a look at them in my webpage. They were really cute, really nice. On my Facebook also, I'm now showing those flowers. I'm telling you why in just a second. Let me tell you the whole story before that. So I started offering classes, and that's when I started actually teaching anything related to edible art here in Portugal. It was a couple of crazy years. I said every single weekend I was traveling around Portugal teaching gelatin art, teaching decorated gelatins. I had private classes here at home. I used to go to people's houses to teach the classes. I don't know, there were times that my fridge, I had to buy the second fridge because there were times that my fridge was filled with, I don't know, maybe 20 to 30 gelatins, like 20 centimeters diameter gelatins. So it was a hectic time. It was my second daughter, Emma, was a baby, so it was quite crazy, but it was a lot of fun. I got to be known here in Portugal for the gelatin lady, and it was a boom. I taught that for I think about a couple of years, and of course, like every the trends stopped, and I was very tired of not having weekends and having a baby on top of that. And I had of course, my teaching, ESL English teaching job, and I had my cake decorating job. So I was like, no, this is too much. I cannot do it. I think a couple of my students end up teaching this, but like many trends, they come and go and they kind of stop. Lately, I've been seeing this trend coming back. Not as much as I saw it before, but I think in Latin America it really stuck because it's somewhere where people really eat gelatins. Here in Portugal, people have the idea that gelatin is for like kids or sick people, so they don't really use it for birthdays and parties. But the flowers are really pretty, so they really call people's attention. And I don't know, I think it was during the pandemic or during the creation of Cake Friends Stay Creative, I started sharing my gelatins. And of course, people outside of Portugal didn't know that I made these gelatins, and they were like, whoa, what? Because I always say I don't make flowers, and I don't make sugar flowers. I make gelatin flowers. It's like, yeah, you do make flowers. These are great. These are wonderful. And talked to a friend the other day, and, just talking about the gelatins that I do, people started to ask me again for courses. And that's why I'm talking about gelatins today. And that's why I'm sharing the gelatins on my webpage and on my Facebook page, Instagram, you name it, because the classes are open again. I decided to, let me give it one more try, and I'm going to open 2 master classes of gelatin art. That means the gelatin flowers. One in English, one in Spanish. It's going to be online. The classes will be online. They will be live, but you will also have access to the pre-recorded classes, because I used to have a pre-recorded classes on my online school. So you're going to have access to that as well. And my students are going to learn how to make at least 5 different realistic looking gelatin flowers. So talking about that and thinking about that, I said, well, you know what? I'm going to do a very different episode today. The episode today is going to be about teaching you about the gelatin. So I'm going to be sharing with you some gelatin tips that you can use not only for gelatin art, but for any time that you decided to do something fancy or different with gelatin. Gelatin is a very used very used ingredient in cuisine, and not only in the art decorating cake world, but in cuisine in general. And it's amazing all the things that you can do, but it can also be a very vulnerable material. So not as vulnerable as chocolate is another story, but I'm going to share with you a few tips and hints on how to use gelatin and how to make it work for your benefit if you decide either to join the Gelatin Art Masterclass, or if you decide to adventure yourself. Take a look at any of my videos on YouTube, because I do have some free videos on YouTube with gelatin art as well. You can go check it out on my YouTube channel, the Art Cake Experience channel. Leaving all the links here as usual, don't worry. And just adventure yourself into the gelatin world. And if you need any more help, you know who to call. You call me. But stay tuned, because I'm going to be sharing 10 important tips on how to use gelatin for your desserts. And today's episode is sponsored by Cake the Great magazine, an international quarterly cake magazine, and it is an open platform for all levels of sugar artists around the world. It showcases talent and skill and the latest news of the cake community. Check out the new issue, where you will find tutorials, recipes, cake collaborations, interviews, and much more. Visit our website www.caketheGreat.com, where you will find all of the previous issues and also will get a 15% off on annual subscription fees. Thanks to award-winning cake decorator Taz Newton Allen and my friend, editor of this magazine, for sponsoring the Art Cake Coach podcast. Okay, my sweet friends. So like I said before, here are some tips, 10 tips to be exact, on the use of gelatin for your desserts. And if you want to adventure into the gelatin art workshop, either the masterclass with me or check out some of my videos, here are some tips that you can use in order to take the best advantage of your gelatin. And who knows, maybe with this the workshops will come around again. You will invite me to go teach wherever you are. I would love to do that, to be back on the road teaching. I would love to do that again, and teach you how to make these edible treats. They are so cute and so beautiful to look at. Please go. I'm going to be sharing a lot of gelatins on my social media and on my website, but please go and check it out, because it's like flowers, like absolute flowers inside clear gelatin. They're mesmerizing to do, and they're mesmerizing to look at, and nobody wants to cut them. That's the problem. Nobody wants to eat them at the end, and they're very tasty too. So go check it out. So here are the tips. I'm not going to talk anymore. Let me just share the tips with you guys. Tip number 1: if you want your gelatin to set faster, use metal molds instead of plastic or clear molds. Metal, or you can use glass. Actually, we use glass or clear plastic for the gelatin flowers, because we need to look at the work that we're doing. Only by practicing a lot you can use the metal molds, because you know what you're doing even though you're not looking at it. But for starting, for the beginner, I'm going to recommend clear plastic molds or glass mold. However, if you're just making a regular gelatin at home and you want it to set faster, try a metal mold. It will set faster and it will be way easier to mold, to take it out of your mold. Tip number 2. You have two kinds of gelatin. You have bovine gelatin that comes from animals and has a yellowish tone and is not that clear when making clear gelatin. But also in some countries, not all countries, actually here it's hard to find, you have fish gelatin or pork gelatin. Pork gelatin, still a little bit yellowish, the bovine gelatin, but fish gelatin is quite clear. So if you can have access to clear gelatin that is coming from fish, is way more transparent than pork bovine gelatin. And if you're vegan, if you are a vegetarian or a vegan friend, you can always opt for agar-agar, which is the seaweed gelatin that doesn't contain any animal traits in it. It's also clear, but it has a little different setting time. So read the instructions carefully before you use agar-agar. And if your recipe involves animal gelatin, then just try and error. There are some conversions there. You can ask me if you want. I have some recipes converted from one to the other, but you might need to use a little bit extra of agar-agar to get the consistency that you want. There you go. Tip number 3. 1 teaspoon of clear gelatin, clear powder gelatin. For all my recipes, I use clear powder gelatin. Powder gelatin. Clear power, no. Yeah, they're powered, but no. Clear powder gelatin is equivalent to 2 sheets of gelatin. You know those gelatin that comes like in transparent sheets that you can buy them in the supermarket? They're quite easier. In here, they're easier to find than the powder one, but I prefer the powder one to work for all my recipes. So 1 teaspoon of powder gelatin is equivalent to 2 sheets of gelatin. Tip number 4. You can remove air bubbles from your gelatin using heat, like a lighter or a torch, as you would use with isomalt. Careful. Okay, don't do it when the gelatin is set and cold. You do it when the gelatin is warm and you're pouring it into your mold. Let's say you pour the gelatin into your mold and you have a bunch of bubbles on the top. Take a torch them out. Not too much because you don't want to burn the gelatin, but the come in contact with the heat, the bubbles will disappear. Tip number 5. Boiling the gelatin mixture during preparation destroys gelatin's ability to set correctly, and the result is kind of gummier. I always tell this to my students because what happened is I used to bring the gelatins already made when I was teaching, because we would have to spend 2 days making the gelatins before the class. So I will bring the gelatin already set and done, all pretty, either the clear gelatin or the layer gelatin, and I will give the recipes to my students and give them some tips on how to make the gelatin. But the thing is, when we heat the gelatin to melt it, I avoid boiling it. Just come to the point right before boiling and turn the heat off. When you boil the gelatin, you create like a rubbery effect into the gelatin. So if you're making like gummy bears, or if you're making something that you want it to be more structured, more gummy-like, boil the gelatin. But for the flour gelatin, if it is too gummy, too rubbery, it's going to be hard to use the syringe inside the gelatin. So my recommendation, do not boil it. Next tip. Gelatin must be completely dissolved before adding any other liquid. Sometimes we have recipes that involve milk or condensed milk or dust coloring. What else? I think I mentioned condensed milk, creams, depending on the gelatin or depending on the recipe. Make sure the powdered gelatin is absolutely dissolved, like totally dissolved, before you add anything else. Otherwise it's going to create a lot of lumps and you're not going to be able to get rid of them. Next tip, clear gelatin will take longer to dissolve when we use milk or cream. So you have two recommendations here. Either take a little bit of the milk or the cream of the recipe and dissolve the gelatin in it. Let it set, dissolve it well before adding it to the complete mixture, or dissolve it in a little bit of water before and then add it to the cream or the milk mixture. That way, you're not going to create any lumps. I think we're in tip number 8. There was a point that I reduced the amount of sugar in my gelatin recipes because coming from Venezuela, the recipes had a lot of sugar. We love sugar over there. And here in Portugal, the taste was different, so I reduced the sugar in it. And I can say that as lower the amount of sugar, it better sets the gelatin, which was contradictory for what I learned at the beginning, but that's what I found out. And also, I have had a better result mixing the the neutral powder gelatin in the sugar together before adding it to the liquid. So that's another thing, because in the course when I taught the gelatins, we used to dissolve the sugar with the water and then add the gelatin. But if you mix the gelatin and the sugar together before adding it to the water, it can be a way to make it dissolve better. Tip number 9, don't use citric acid with cream, milk, or condensed milk gelatins. For the clear gelatin, gelatins have a sweet taste, but it has this little acidic taste. And also to make it a little bit clearer, we use citric acid. Please do not use citric acid if in your mixture you have anything related to dairy, cream, milks, or condensed milk, because it's going to clog, it's going to taste terrible, and you're going to damage your gelatin. So if you're using transparent, like water gelatin with some flavor, also, I don't have this in the tips, but if you're going to use any flavor for your clear gelatin, the flavor has to be clear as well. Otherwise, you're going to give color to the mixture of the clear gelatin. And for the flowers, we want the gelatin to be as clear as possible. And remember, don't use citric acid for any dairy-related recipes of gelatin. As your cake coach, I am here to help you. If you want to go a little bit further in your journey, to organize your time, set clear goals, maybe teach, work on your mindset, or set a roadmap for results, especially for results and success, I am here for you. Why don't you book a free discovery call with me? I will be leaving the links here in this episode so we can chat, we can talk about what you really need, and we can see if we're a good fit for each other. Remember, I have just one mission in this cake world. First is to unite the cake community as one and to make you, my cake artist, my sweet friend, understand the importance of investing in you. Like I said, I will be leaving the links here in the description of this episode so you can book a 30 minutes free discovery call with me. And just remember, in case nobody said this to you today, I do appreciate you and I want you to stay safe and stay creative. Hello, my sweet friend. Let me invite you to subscribe to the Art Cake Coach podcast exclusive content platform. By becoming a member, you'll get exclusive monthly content and access to audio classes and workshops on goal setting, time management, social media posting, pricing mindset, and teaching. Get access to exclusive bonus content for only €2.99 a month. Check out the link to subscription platform on the description of this episode. Let me help you on your cake journey and coach you for success here at the Art Cake Coach podcast. And final tip for you guys is hydrate your gelatin. What is to hydrate the gelatin? The powder gelatin that I use goes through a process that we call hydrated or blooming the gelatin. If you have seen some videos, you have seen that even my videos, I sprinkle the gelatin into water and I let it rest before putting it into the microwave or on the stove or mixing it with other parts of the preparation. Why? Because that way the gelatin grain will absorb all the moist, absorb all the water, grow, and it will make a more stable gelatin and a clearer gelatin if you're using the recipe for clear gelatins for flowers. So here are your 10 tips for making gelatins that you can apply either to the flowers if you're making flowers by yourself or with me. If you want to give it a try, just go to my YouTube channel. There is a video on the first flower that we learned to make. It's a free video there. For the chrysanthemum is the easiest one to make, and it's beautiful. Just go ahead, check the video. I'm going to be leaving the link here, but check out the video, see the whole process. I have the recipes, try it out. And if you want to learn more flowers, join the masterclass. I'm also going to be leaving here the links for the waiting list for the masterclass. The masterclass is going to be in May, if I'm not mistaken. So let me just check here on my calendar. May 18th, we're going to be doing the class in English, and May 25th, we're going to be doing the class in Spanish. And with this, my sweet friends, I leave you today with this very different episode from my part, talking about gelatins and about edible stuff. You're not talking about time management, Christina, or goal setting or anything like that. But I have to be cakey someday, right? So here I am. And I really hope you enjoyed. I really hope you use or these tips are useful for you and that you try it out and that you come and join the masterclass on gelatin art. Thank you so much, my sweet friends, for listening to today's episode. And I hope to see you next week. And as always, stay safe and stay creative. I'll see you next time. Hey, my sweet friend, if you like this episode and enjoy this podcast, there is only one thing I want from you. Please like, follow, and leave me a started review in any of your favorite podcast platform where you're listening to this podcast now. This way, this program can keep growing. The algorithm will show it to more cake artists who will benefit from it. Download the episode, share it on your social media, and tag me, and I'll gladly tag you and follow you back. I would love to hear what you have to say. You can leave me a voice message on Anchor, Spotify for podcasters, answer the questions and polls on the episode, or leave me a comment on my social media. Even if you don't like what I say, I would love to hear your opinion. And let me invite you to follow me on Instagram as @theartcoach or in any of my social media accounts. I'll leave you all the links in the description of this episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Art K Coach podcast.